The kitchen, the edge of the marble counter digging into my palms as I clenched them into fists. My heart wasn't pounding, it was sinking, like a cold stone thrown into a bottomless well. Their voices floated from the hallway, soft but sharp. "She's too lonely to ever say no," my mother whispered, her voice sweet but soaked in something rotten. "Just ask, she'll give it all." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Then came my father's reply, smug and low. "Just tell her she's loved." My fingers loosened. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just stood there for a moment, staring into the flickering light under the cabinet, as if it would somehow soften what I'd just heard. But it didn't. I smoothed the creases in my blouse, stepped away from the counter, and whispered to myself, "Okay." Then I walked upstairs, pulled out my phone, and called Henry. "Is it time?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning," I said. "Have everything ready. They think they're clever. Let's remind them whose name is on the deed." Just 72 hours earlier, I'd flown in from Portland for what was supposed to be a family weekend. My mother had said she missed me. My father had added that he barely recognized the voice on the phone anymore. I knew something was off then. But loneliness is funny. It makes you do things your gut tells you not to. So I came. And for the first 12 hours, they were charming. My mother ran her fingers through my hair like I was still 6 years old. My father poured my wine and toasted me like I was some guest of honor. "You've always been our pride, you know that," he said that first evening, patting my shoulder. I'd smiled. Not because I believed it, but because I was testing how far they were willing to go. Turns out pretty damn far. The next morning, over breakfast, my mother laid the groundwork. "You're such a generous soul, Callie," she said, buttering her toast without looking up. "Always giving. It's who you are." I replied, taking a sip of coffee. "You think that's a strength?" She laughed softly. "It's your heart. Some people just weren't born with one like yours." And that was the first breadcrumb. My father followed an hour later, pulling out a faded photo album and flipping through old pictures of us at the lake house. "Remember this?" he asked, tapping a picture of me as a teenager, laughing with my little brother, Ryan. "Simpler times." "You sold that lake house," I said flatly, "right after the crash." "Only on paper," he replied with a smirk. "Technically, it's still in the family trust." And that's when I knew. They wanted access to my accounts. Again. By the third day, I'd let them pour it on. I let them plan the estate shift for future clarity. I let them talk about my role in helping them buy back the Florida property. But I said nothing. I gave them no reactions, no rejections, no agreements, just nods and smiles. I let them believe I was soft, gullible, lonely enough to fall for it. And tonight, hearing them whisper down the hallway about how easy I'd be to manipulate, how unloved I must feel, I realized something brutal. They'd never seen me. Not the real me. Not since I turned 21 and left this house with just a backpack and a scholarship. They didn't know the woman I'd become. But they were about to. The next morning, I came down in a navy suit. Hair pinned. Flats on. No jewelry. "You look professional," my mother commented, squinting suspiciously. "I've got a meeting," I said, brushing crumbs from a chair before sitting. "Someone's coming by." "Oh." My father looked up from his phone. "Work-related?" "No," I said, smiling. "Family business." A knock on the door interrupted us. Perfect timing. My mother reached for the handle, but I was already there, opening the door wide for Henry. Crisp suit. Leather briefcase. Calm, calculating smile. "Good morning," he said, stepping in. "I'm Henry Carter, Miss Callie Bennett's legal counsel. I believe we have a few matters to discuss." My father's face drained color like a sink with the plug pulled. "Legal counsel? For what?" Henry set his briefcase on the dining table, clicking it open with a cool motion. "For clarity's sake," he said, sliding out documents with printed tabs, We're here to discuss the ownership of all properties currently held under the Bennett Family Trust, as well as the recent inquiry regarding asset redistribution, which Miss Bennett was asked to contribute to. My mother stammered. There must be some confusion. No confusion, I said quietly, pulling out my chair again. Just transparency. Isn't that what you said you wanted? I looked straight at them. Their eyes darted. Their bodies stiffened. And for once, they were the ones who looked small in this house. What they didn't know was this. I had already restructured the trust. 2 years ago, after my promotion and the acquisition of my equity firm's parent company, I'd quietly shifted my assets. One of those assets was the controlling interest in the Bennett Trust, courtesy of my grandmother, who'd always told me, "Don't trust your father. He's got too much charm and not enough spine." I listened. I had the paperwork. I had the power. I had everything they assumed I'd hand over for crumbs of affection. But most importantly, I had the truth. When Henry read aloud the clause that removed my father as acting trustee, my mother stood up so fast her chair clattered to the floor. "This is betrayal," she snapped. "How could you do this to your own family?" I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I watched you manipulate me. I listened to you say I was lonely enough to fall for it. You thought I wouldn't hear. My father blinked hard. "You heard that?" "Yes," I said. "And I didn't cry. I planned." Henry slid the final document across the table. "These papers finalize Miss Bennett's sole authority over the Florida property, the Connecticut house, and the remaining liquid assets in the Bennett Trust. All previously shared rights are revoked, as of this morning." My mother sank back into her chair. "You were always distant," she said. "You always acted like you didn't need us." I leaned in slightly, my voice low but steady. "No," I said. "I just finally realized you never really loved me. You loved what you could take." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I just stood, gathered the papers, and looked them both in the eye. "I let you think I believed you," I said, walking toward the door. "That was your mistake." As I stepped outside into the cold air, Henry by my side, I exhaled. I wasn't lonely. I was finally free. The door clicked shut behind me, but I didn't rush. I stood there on the porch for a moment, letting the wind push against my face. It was cold, but it reminded me I was alive, in control, and no longer playing their game. Henry stepped beside me. That was cleaner than expected. I gave a small smile. They're still trying to process that I didn't beg. He nodded. "You want to grab coffee before we file the final paperwork?" I did. But first, I wanted to see something. We drove 15 minutes through town, past my old high school, past the bookstore I used to sit in to avoid going home. The place hadn't changed much, but I had. We parked in front of the old White House, my grandmother's. The one they tried to flip after her funeral without even telling me. They didn't know she'd left me a copy of the original will in a dusty blue envelope hidden inside her piano bench. I stepped out of the car and stood in front of it now, the porch still creaking in the wind like it always had. "Why here?" Henry asked. "Because this is where it started," I said. "Where I learned love had conditions and silence had power." Back at the office, I signed the final documents. As I clicked the pen shut, Henry said, "You sure you don't want to press charges? Fraud isn't out of the question here." I paused, then shook my head. "No," I said. "Let them live with the fact that I didn't need revenge. Just truth." But truth has its own echo. And by evening, that echo reached me. My phone buzzed. "Ryan." "Ryan, why is Mom crying and Dad drinking at noon? What did you do?" I stared at the screen. "No, hey." "No, how are you?" "Just blame." I didn't reply. Instead, I got up from my desk, walked to the window, and stared at the skyline. They hadn't broken me. They had just shown me who they really were. And now? Now they'd have to live without me. I didn't reply to Ryan's message that day. Not because I didn't have words, but because I didn't know them anymore. They'd taken enough from me over the years. My childhood, my confidence, my sense of belonging. I wasn't going to hand them peace of mind, too. But Ryan didn't wait long. The next evening, I was back in my apartment in Portland when the knock came. Not the buzzy apartment call downstairs. A real knock, right at my door. I opened it, and there he stood. My younger brother, taller now, eyes tense with a kind of betrayal I used to wear like a second skin. "You couldn't even warn me?" he said, walking in without being invited. "You had to drop it on them like that?" I shut the door slowly behind him. "You think I owed them a warning?" "I think," he said sharply, "we're family, and you blindsided Mom and Dad." I turned, my voice calm. Did they warn me when they decided to use me? When they stood in the hallway whispering that I was so lonely, I'd hand over my savings if they just pretended to care? His face shifted. "What are you talking about?" I folded my arms. "I heard them, Ryan. Sunday night. Mom said I'd give them everything. Dad said to just lie and say I'm loved. That's all it would take. They planned to bleed me dry, and you think I'm the villain?" He looked stunned, mouth opening slightly, then closing again. "That can't be right. You must have misunderstood." "No," I said. "I didn't." I walked to the kitchen, poured water into a glass just to steady my hands. Not because I was scared, but because I had never said these things out loud before. I've spent years convincing myself that I was over it, that they didn't mean to play favorites, that I was just the difficult one. But now I see the pattern. "You think Mom and Dad don't love you?" Ryan asked. I turned back to him, my voice softer now, but more dangerous because of it. "They don't see me, Ryan. Love isn't real if it only shows up when they need something. It's manipulation dressed up as warmth. And I'm done pretending I don't know the difference." He sat on the edge of the couch, quiet, processing. "So what now?" he finally asked. "You cut all of us off?" I sat across from him. "That depends. Did you know what they were planning?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I swear. I thought they just invited you home because they missed you." I smiled sadly. So did I. That's the part that hurts most. The silence hung between us for a moment. Then Ryan said something I didn't expect. "I think Grandma knew this would happen. She always told me you were stronger than all of us." I blinked. "She said that?" He nodded. "She told me once, Callie's going to figure it all out one day, and when she does, we'll all wish we treated her better." A weight shifted in my chest. Some mixture of grief, validation, and old bruises surfacing. "She gave me a letter," I said quietly. "The day of her funeral. Told me not to open it until I knew who I was." "Have you read it?" "I'm about to." I walked to my bookshelf, pulled down the small white envelope. My name written in her neat cursive. Still sealed. Ryan leaned in as I opened it, but I held up a hand. "No. This is for me." He nodded and looked away, giving me space. I pulled out the folded paper, inhaled once, and began to read. Her words, simple, clear, and devastating, wrapped around me like a blanket of truth. "Callie, if you're reading this, then you've finally seen them for who they are. I always knew you would. You have the strongest heart of anyone I've known, but don't confuse that with weakness. Your kindness is your shield. You've survived a childhood where love came with price tags. Don't ever let them make you pay again. Own what's yours. Protect it. And walk away with grace. That's the revenge they'll never understand." I folded the letter, my throat tight, tears hot in my eyes. Ryan stood up slowly, unsure. "You okay?" he asked. I wiped a tear with the back of my hand and nodded. "Yeah," I whispered. "For the first time, I think I am." 3 days passed. I didn't hear from my parents. Not a text. Not an email. Just silence. A silence too calculated to be real. And then, at 10:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night, Ryan sent a single text. "They invited me to dinner. Told me not to tell you." I stared at the screen, heartbeat steady. Not surprised. Just disappointed. I called him. He picked up on the first ring. "They said they were worried about me," he began, "and that you'd changed. That you're trying to divide the family." I almost laughed. Of course they did. It's the same story, just a new target. He was quiet for a moment. "They tried to make me feel guilty. Said you were spinning lies to turn me against them. That you were, his voice lowered, emotionally unstable. There it was. The last weapon they had left. Discredit me. I didn't argue. Instead, I asked, what did you believe?
He sighed.
I believed them. For about 10 minutes. Until I remembered what they said about you when you weren't around. The stuff they'd let slip. Apparently, they didn't realize how much Ryan had noticed over the years. The subtle digs. The cold shoulders. The nights I stayed in my room while they praised his college choices and ignored my first job offer. I used to think you were just distant, he admitted. But now I see you were just trying not to shatter in front of everyone. That hit me harder than I expected. Ryan, I said softly, you don't owe me anything, but thank you for seeing me now. He replied, I should have seen you years ago. The next night they tried again. This time they called me. I let it ring twice before picking up. Hello. It was my father. His tone was polished, but I could hear the edge underneath. Callie, we need to talk. As a family. Now you want a family conversation? I asked. Where was that when you were plotting to siphon my accounts? You misunderstood, he said quickly. It wasn't like that. No. I asked. Then explain it to me. Explain why you told Mom to just say I was loved, as if love were a strategy, not a feeling. He went quiet. Then, calmly, I added, you don't love me. You never have. You just love what I can give. His voice cracked. You're making a mistake. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the truth hang in the air. No, I said. I made the mistake of coming back. That won't happen again. And I hung up. Ryan called later that night. They're furious, he said. Said you've changed. I have, I replied. I finally stopped asking for love from people who only offer conditions. What are you going to do now? I smiled to myself. Now, I said. Now I'm going to live. And they're going to watch me do it without needing them at all. 2 weeks later, I received an invitation in the mail. Cream-colored envelope. Gold seal. My full name, handwritten. You are cordially invited to the Bennett Foundation Annual Gala. My parents' charity event. The one they used to parade me at every year like a silent trophy. I hadn't been invited since I moved to Portland. Now, suddenly, I was cordially welcomed. I laughed out loud. It wasn't about reconciliation. It was a setup. A public appearance meant to save face. To convince everyone we were still a perfect family. And this time, they thought I'd be naive enough to show up alone. They forgot who they raised. That night, I arrived at the gala in a floor-length black gown. Minimal jewelry. Hair pinned back tight. The kind of elegance that doesn't beg for attention. It demands it. But I didn't walk in alone. Henry was beside me, his presence solid and unreadable. And on my other arm, the CFO of the investment firm I now co-owned, who also happened to be their largest donor. Their expressions when they saw me? Shattered porcelain. My mother approached first, a practiced smile glued to her face. Callie, darling, we weren't sure you'd come. I leaned in and smiled back. I almost didn't. But then I thought, what a lovely chance to see what desperation looks like in pearls. She flinched slightly. What are you talking about? I glanced at the crowd. You invited me to play the role of the good daughter. The prop. But I came to remind you, I'm the reason this event is even funded. And I'm not here to stay quiet. When my father walked up, he tried the same charm. Hand outstretched. Callie, we've had our differences. But this is a celebration. No, I said, ignoring his hand. This is a mask. And I'm done wearing one. People nearby turned their heads, pretending not to eavesdrop. I took the mic from the podium before they could stop me. To those who know me as Callie Bennett, I said, steady and clear, I thank you. But tonight, I'm not just their daughter. I'm the woman who owns the shares that keep this foundation running. And after tonight, I'll be making some changes. Gasps. Whispers. My mother's face turned pale. My father clenched his jaw. I continued. I've watched this charity become a vanity project for people who value image over impact. That ends now. The Bennett Foundation will be restructured to actually serve people, not egos. Effective immediately. Applause broke out. Real applause. From people who had been waiting for someone to say it. I stepped down from the mic, walked past my parents without looking back, and left with my head high. Outside, Ryan was waiting. I saw the live stream, he said. You didn't hold back. I turned to him. Still want to be part of this family? He looked at me seriously. Only if it's your version of it. I nodded. Then we start from scratch. Weeks later, the Bennett name was still making headlines. But this time, it wasn't about scandal, it was about transformation. And me? I was finally building something real. Without lies. Without conditions. Without needing to be told I was loved just to be used.